What helped you get over a crush you had for years? Well, for me, I kept telling myself that I did not fall in love with her, but with the idea of her. I had always imagined a future with her. I wouldn't bore you with the details, but yeah, in those imaginations, she seemed to be so excited about my presence. I mean, she was in real life too. She's a pretty good friend of mine, but in those dreams, a little more, I guess. But anyway, the fabricated unreal girl were almost pole opposites in nature, so I kept telling myself for 3 years that the girl I actually had a crush on never existed. I liked the girl in my imagination, and there, she liked me back too. It wasn't the case with the real one, so that's what helped me move on from her. She's still my friend. Maybe we're not as close as we were before, maybe it's for the best. I still sometimes get slight feelings for her, but I'm sure it will wear out with time. The fact that I just stopped initiating the conversation, and that was the last time we talked. One day, I saw her across the quad. I waved and she stopped walking and just stood there. I walked towards her and realized that she wasn't walking towards me. Then I realized she'd never walked towards me, never sought me out, never put effort into our friendship, let alone anything else our relationship might develop into. It took a bit to process, but that was the moment that helped me break free. Here's my time to shine. So I got into this girl in middle school. I've had a mad crush on her for 5 long fucking years. The reason why I didn't confess was that I was the rejected kid, 0 friends and a weirdo, and she on the other hand was popular, smart and intelligent, so I always admired her from the sidelines, under the radar, and she was completely unknown of my existence. In high school I made a few friends who told me to stop being a wimp and confess, so I walked up to her one day in recess and confessed. She made a disgusted face and said that no way in hell she'd be with me, and she was in a relationship anyways. I walked away disappointed in myself and feeling real down. Then a few minutes later her boyfriend came up to me. He said that he was listening from a distance and said he had chewed her out for her reaction. I know that I shouldn't have taken her seriously, but I actually felt low for a month. This guy approached me every day, asked how I was doing. Later on we made best friends. Later on the girl dumped him and he told me all that was wrong about her and how she was a complete jerk and I had dodged the bullet. This guy helped me a lot in recovering from that blow, and he's the reason why I'm actually making more friends. Note: this happened a year ago. Doctor, girl humiliated me for confessing, but her boyfriend made best friends with me and helped me recover. Getting to know her. Lol. Yes, I had a crush on some guy for about 10 years. I finally decided to text him after he and his long-term GF broke up. I waited over a year. He did not seem uninterested, but it was so hard to get the conversation going. It felt like I was talking to a 13-year-old boy who was only interested in motorcycles and breaking every rule on earth to look cool. One evening he asked me if I wanted to meet up in town. We were both out with friends, pre-COVID. He then proceeded to ask me if I was going to suck his CCK until it was empty. I never responded. Found a woman who was interested in me. It's so much better when the feelings are mutual. Haha, yeah, that helped me too, but with one crush. After I found a girl to spend my life with, she admitted that she had a crush on me too at the same time, and that I was missing all the signs when we would hang out. Talk about a mindfuck. The realization that I would probably feel lonely in a relationship with him. Thank you for putting this into words. I was just broken up with yesterday. I had felt it coming for months now, but I couldn't exactly put into words why. But you hit the nail on the head with this comment. I felt lonely being with her. She never really showed much interest in me romantically. We weren't our best friends, but I see now that she never really saw much more than that in me. I felt like I put so much more effort into the relationship than she ever did. which is a really disheartening thing to feel. It being over hurts like a fucking bitch. But it's for the best. The amount of anxiety the imbalance brought me was in no way worth the happy moments. We're better as friends. I just hope I'll be able to move on before she finds someone else, because that is gonna eat me up from the inside. Sorry for the small rant. The emotions are still very high, and I really need to get it out somehow. You have to accept it. Don't obsess over them, but don't push the thought of them away so much that you can't process it. Allow yourself to come to terms with it, accept it for whatever it is, and realize what you need to do to move forward. Everyone is different and every situation is different, but I believe the first step is acknowledgement and acceptance. Telling her how I feel, not in a be my girlfriend sense, more in a this thing is bothering me and I need to talk about it way. I was 99.9% sure she only saw me as a friend. Turns out, I was absolutely right. Things got weird between us for about half a week. She is still my best friend, but after confessing, the romantic feelings for her quickly faded away. It feels better this way. Edit spelling. I think sometime during our teen and early 20s the feelings were mutual, but timing was always off. So, I wrote him a farewell letter, apologizing for growing apart and told him I'll always love him, wished him the best and left it at that. I don't know if he ever received the message, but it gave me the necessary closure to move on with my life, and remember us during the happier times we had. Telling them I have a crush on them, it helps seeing them as a real person instead of only seeing the fantasy. Also, the way they react always says a lot about their personality. When you tell them, the anxiety of being around them is gone and you can really assess whether you actually like being around them or if the crush was just nerves. I had the biggest crush ever. He was a really close friend, and we had an amazing friendship that made me doubt he reciprocated my feelings. After my long-term relationship finished, I just decided to confess my feelings, because I didn't feel like I could move on if I didn't. We dated for about 6 months, and then separated amicably. We were better matched on paper than IRL. Talking to my crush and being honest about my feelings helped me not idealize them, and eventually I came to terms with the fact that we were not a good couple. My advice is, don't be scared to talk about your crush with your crush, and avoid making them more perfect in your mind. They are still human. Be honest, be kind, and be respectful of any outcome. Couldn't believe my luck when I found Kim some 25 years later, still single, and still quite pretty. Took her out to a nice Italian place, and she spent the entire time on her goddamn phone with her stupid friend whose kid wouldn't listen to her. How her deadbeat husband was such a loser. How men in general sucked. I finished dinner, dessert, drink, then another drink, then paid the bill. When I got up to leave, she still remained on that 90-plus minute phone conversation, but held up her index finger, as if asking me to wait just one more minute. Sometimes the real blessing is not getting exactly what you want. Coming in way too late, but here goes. When I finally told her how I felt and was rejected, I asked her if she ever thought about the possibility of us together. She said no. It was as if I could feel my brain rewiring right there in the moment, because I realized I wasted so many years pining over someone who never once considered me in the same way. Who knows what opportunities I missed because I was so fixated on her. Thankfully, I got out of my head in my early 20s before it impeded any more growth on my part. This is going to be the exact opposite answer you're looking for. But I found myself single recently, and ran into him at the grocery store, and after a few minutes catching up, what do you know? He's single too. Asked him out on the spot. He said yes, Turns out that I was his one that got away too. It's been a little while now and we're ridiculously in love and grateful for one another every single day because we're neither of us the abusive assholes we each spent the last however many years putting up with. Closing. Sometimes the person you had a crush on for years turns out to be the best person you've ever known. Sometimes they don't, but you'll never know unless you try. When one day my best friend started having hard crushes on her, he didn't know this but I helped him trying to score her by telling him what moves he should make, or what's her preference. At that point I realized I was having a crush on her for nearly a decade, and a decade of unrequited love is just too long. The fact that I saw her a few months later in a supermarket after nearly 5 years that I last saw her just broke me. She's just too beautiful and pure for me to have any chances with her, so this time I get to help my best friend and get over my feelings. The ending? Apparently my best friend is just as coward as me and ultimately kept his feelings to himself rather than going through with it. My ex-crush currently has a really cool boyfriend and is on track to finish her architecture degree. Beautiful. Realize there's nothing beautiful or romantic about pining for someone and choose to get past it. Include, reciprocates my feelings equal to my own. On my list of what to look for in a future romantic partner, if someone can't reciprocate, realize it isn't meant to be and it would never be compatible or healthy. Recognize that the qualities that are attractive in that person can be found in other people, and more importantly, in myself. Treat getting over someone like getting over an addiction. It actually activates the same parts of your brain, same feel-good chemicals, so pining equals withdrawal. You get over it by going cold turkey and waiting for the pain to ebb. It will. Do not stalk on social media. When thoughts of person come up, just remind self not helpful and immediately think of something else I like thinking about instead. Also remind self of any bad quality of said person and amplify why it would be an unhealthy, unpleasant dynamic in a relationship. Focus on future and other people in life who are good for me. Speaking as a 25-year-old male virgin who's had quite a few crushes in high school, I think it's a combination of growing older and coming to a bit of a realization about how love actually works in the real world. Teenage hormones made me believe I was madly in love with a particular female classmate or acquaintance. Then it just suddenly dawned on me that I didn't actually know this girl very well, never really interacting with her outside of school hours, and obviously enough that my attraction to her was pretty shallow and one-sided in the first place. I was in love with a personal fantasy from my own imaginary world, rather than a real person. It's hard at first realizing I never actually had a chance with her, but it soon became quite easy to get over it and move on, better than continuing to live in delusion over something that never actually existed in the first place. Taking a step back and trying to view them in a different light, looking past their looks and taking notice of certain traits and behaviors that you normally overlook because you're so caught up in how hot they are. 9 times out of 10 for me, I found I didn't really like them at all or could see I wouldn't actually be happy being with them. He lied about me to friends that he didn't realize were also friends with my relatives. His lie involved me sleeping with him on the same day I was actually in a wedding with 3 cousins and multiple witnesses. Asshole. Forgot to mention, my first wedding. Yeah, I had already been over the whole getting married thing, but this definitely solidified any lingering feelings I may have had. Time. It's the worst, but in time, things fade. Let yourself feel those emotions. Let yourself think emotionally, logically, rationally, devil's advocate life, and allow yourself to move on. Which sucks. Do your best to avoid relationships for the sake of filling the void and try to pursue meaningful, positive relationships until you feel like you have become calmly centered. Seriously, time heals all wounds. Also, time can suck it. Wellbutrin, bupropion, actually stops me from getting infatuated and diminishes my effect around my old crushes. I used to crush 1-3 times a year. It's off-label used to treat addiction. Secondly, after reading the book attached, I realized a good deal of my crushing was activation of my attachment style and had little to do with them. Your comment caught my eye. It has been a while that I have been feeling changed. I feel less emotional, passionater and more practical towards everything. I'm married and love my spouse, but I don't think I could write a poem declaring my love for them for the life of me. I could before. For instance, I had attributed it to aging. I will be 30 this year, but I have been taking Wellbutrin since 2019. I wonder. Taking a marijuana edible, which sort of amplified my subconscious thoughts, and I was faced with the alarming extent to which she was living in my head still after so much time had passed. I started doing mindfulness and breathing exercises when I consciously thought of her, and it sort of unraveled the whole thing over a month or two. I still think about her a lot, but in more of a fond recollection way every few weeks rather than a poking an unhealed wound kind of way. I moved into a studio apartment next door to her. I worked with her and only saw her a couple days a week there. She was pretty cool and we had some decent banter. In passing I mentioned I was looking for a place and she mentioned there being a vacant unit next door, gave me her landlord's number and I moved in. Turned out she had no chill whatsoever, and happened to keep everything reined in for her shifts at work. It was rather eye-opening. I arrested her. She was a beautiful girl in high school and we always talked, but she always put the brakes on any relationship. 2 days before I was to leave for basic we hooked up. I went to BCT thinking of her the whole time. Afterwards I went home before 8 and her brother said she went to New Mexico to go to school. I tried several times through the years to contact her but her parents got sketchy and harder to reach. After I got out of the service I made my way back home and found out that her little brother was drunk and killed in an MVA. I came home and joined the police department in my hometown. About 2 years and I was called to a scene involving a combative WF in a church trying to hit people with a bottle. I recognized her almost immediately. She looked like a skeleton. She probably weighed 75 to 80 pounds. She was covered in pockmarks and sores. Her teeth were decayed and mostly gone. I was trying to get her to calm down but she was just out of her mind. In the struggle she broke the bottle over my partner's face and that pretty much sealed it for her. I tried to help her but I realized after a few months that she didn't want help. I never felt the same way about her again. The irony is that I ended up marrying one of the ladies that happened to be in the church that day and we are awaiting child number 5 this summer. I guess things have a weird way of working out. Her having a new boyfriend, waited 5 months after her relationship ended, told her about my intentions. Didn't say yes, but she didn't say number 3 weeks before my college graduation he brought her new man to our party. It stung, but moved on right there and then. Got so wasted that night. The only time I ever puked from alcohol. We haven't spoken to her after that party until she messaged me apologizing for not having any feelings towards me. It was a nice gesture. I tried to be friends but I really lost any feelings I had so I just became distant. We reconnected again during our friend's child baptismal. We were in a couch and I was holding the baby. She uttered a joke, "Well honey, I think I want a second baby." I laughed and we became friends again. She asked me out but I was already seeing our friend then, secretly, so had to decline. My best friend, at the time, knew I liked him. I knew him since I was 4 and had a crush on him basically since then. Well, she decided enough was enough, and was kind enough to fuck him and then hide it from me for months whilst everyone else knew. She was such a great friend. It really helped me get over him super quick and get over being her friend. Telling her about my feelings and getting rejected helped. I was obsessing about her up to that point. After the rejection I still thought about her, but I knew she wasn't into me, so I let go of any hope. It made me really think about what it would be like if she actually said yes. We had very different personalities and we would not work as a couple. After almost 2 years, I was glad I was rejected. Honestly, finally confessing to first her friend and then her. I kept this secret from everyone, probably because I was very shy as a kid, but when she expressed that she honestly wasn't interested in me that way, it forced me to face reality, making me think at the time that maybe I should look elsewhere instead of focusing on one person for 2 years.